Welcome to the 4th annual Every Day with Jill tomato tasting. Along here you can see all of the tomatoes. I have them all marked and I harvested them before the hurricane to make sure that I would have some lovelies left so that we could do our tomato tasting. So we start with the Sun Gold, the Patio Tomato, Honeycomb, Kryptonite. Kryptonite is the only non-cherry tomato. Sweet Million, Shimmer, and Sunset Torch. Here we go. So first let me introduce my two special guest judges. I have my daughter Julia here and her husband Dan. And they are great judges because they are both chefs. And so they're very familiar with the tasting of acid, salt, whatever. And so I think they're going to give us a lot of interesting opinions. So we'll start with the first one, Sunset Torch. Let me I'll cut it. You can share that one.
To me, it kind of tasted like a diet tomato.
Mm-hmm.
Like
interesting.
You can tell by the color, it's not like as red as that or even as orange as this. It's kind of like a in-betweeny thing.
All right, well, we've cleansed our palates, and now we're on to tomato number 2, Shimmer. Shimmer is not exactly a cherry tomato. It's a little bit of an elongated plum tomato, and it's sort of a varietal in terms of color. You can see it's quite lovely. So it's hard not to compare them when you've just had one, even though you cleansed your palate. But let's start with Dan this time.
I like this one. I actually really like this one. It's got nice tomato flavor. I like the shape. You could probably cut it into like nice spears. This is one that I would eat just kind of straight.
And you probably would grow too, right? It's interesting.
Yeah, I like the color.
It'd be interesting in salads. The color is lovely.
I thought that this one tasted a lot fresher. It tasted fresher. I don't know if acidic is the right word. Certainly more like.
You get a little more of that like sun-kissed tomato taste.
I think that this one, the first one tasted more sort of duller, and this one tasted sort of fresher, brighter.
All right, the next tomato is a Sweet Million cherry tomato. This is a very popular tomato. It's always at Tomato Mania. I have not grown it before, so let's see how it goes. It's very sweet. It's very sweet, and I will tell you, on the vine, it's incredibly prolific. I have 2 tomatoes this year that are incredibly prolific, and this is one of them. So, salads all season with the Sweet Million.
I am glad to hear that it's prolific. I think that's fun. It is so sweet that I think I almost wouldn't use it in some applications where it would be, but where it would be like in cooking. I think it's just really sweet. I think you can use it anywhere that you would use a tomato, but it feels like it doesn't bring as much complexity as it does just sort of sugar.
Okay. This next tomato is called Kryptonite. It is so gorgeous. Look at it's a green and purple tomato. That's why it's called Kryptonite. So it is not a cherry tomato, and some of the others on the vine were much larger. So this is sort of the end of the season for Kryptonite. Okay. I'm going to start, and I don't find this tomato particularly flavorful. I feel like it, all of the punch is in the color and the unusual name, but I'm not sure. This might be good for a sauce, but just eating it off the vine, not so much. We're now moving on to a cherry tomato called Honeycomb. It is an orange tomato.
Wow.
Okay, Dan, what are you thinking?
I like that one a lot. It's most like the Sweet Million, but it's just a little unique in a good way.
I think it's a little more tart. It has a little bit of a zing to it. The Sweet Million is sweet, and this has a little bit of more, maybe acid or...
I think the honeycomb's sweetness tastes more similar to honey than it does to like sugar cane.
Oh, okay.
I think
That's
that's
interesting.
honeycomb.
Maybe that's why.
The sweetness feels a little rounder.
My wife is completely right.
That's always the right answer. My wife is completely right. This one is also not a cherry tomato. A little bit bigger. a little bit more like a aroma, but about half the size. It's orangey and has a little purple tint to it as well. Okay, who wants to start?
It was a little watery.
Yeah, agreed.
I had to have 2 slices because I wasn't sure that
You just thought your tongue was working.
something was wrong, but no, it's just not very flavorful.
Yeah, I don't know. Here we have the Sun Gold tomato. It is probably almost as popular as the Sweet Million, but it's orange. You can just pop them off and use them as a snack.
It's not as sweet as the Sweet Million. It's got kind of more of a rounded out flavor, but not. I would call it between the Sweet Million and the honeycomb, but in really a great way.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think it's not neutral and it's not bland, but it feels like an all-purpose tomatoey tomato. It's not too sweet, so it makes you feel like you can't use it for some things. It's not watery or bland. I think it's a nice, solid pick.
Okay, next up, the judge's decision. Well, we just had a very spirited discussion about our favorites and which ones we would grow in the garden, so let's share that with you. So first of all, let's start with our personal winners. Which was your very favorite, Dan?
My favorite was the Sun Gold.
Okay, because?
I thought that it had the most sort of straight, good tomato flavor on its own.
Okay.
Yeah.
My favorite was the Shimmer because it is a nice size for a snack tomato, but I think big enough you can justify cooking with it. And I like fresh acid taste, and I think that the Shimmer had the most of that.
And the best name, Shimmer. My favorite was, quite surprisingly, the honeycomb, because in the past I have chosen others, which I'm going to tell you about. The total winners, let me tell you the process. So each of us ranked on a scale of 1 to 10 how well we liked the tomato, 10 being best, and then we averaged all those scores. And coming in at number 3 is, for a tie, is Shimmer and Sweet Million. Coming in at number 2 is Sun Gold at 7.5, and I will tell you that in the past 3 years, Sun Gold has been in the top 2. Year 1, it was number 1. Year 2, it was just barely beat out by Lady Marmande, and last year it was number 1 again. So it is really a favorite, and it was Dan's number 1 pick, and I consider his palate to be very sophisticated. And then the very top one, boop, 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 honeycomb, for the first time, a breakthrough. Honeycomb, the little cherry tomato that has just a little bit of a different acidic taste than the other Sun Gold. So, as we wrap up our tomato tasting for this year, I want to thank our judges who did an excellent job. And let's toast to the tomatoes of next year.
And thanks for growing them.
Yeah, good job.